Good evening and welcome to the committee as a whole for Finance and Administrative, March 10th, St. Tammany Parish School Board. Mrs. Coakley, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nation.
Here.
Mr. Green. Mrs. Heinz. Mr. Derman. Mr. Loop. Mr. Harrell. Mrs. Moore. Mr. Winkler. Mrs. Baker. Mr. Bentoncourt. Mrs. Lamy. Mr. Hersey. Mr. Bro. Mr. Kuzan. Mrs. Page.
Thank you. Would everyone please rise for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mrs. Lamy.
Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us here tonight safely, Father. I thank you for loving us and for your grace and mercy over us. Please be with us and guiding our decisions. Give us wisdom. Help us to stay humble and to make good choices. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mrs. Lamy. Are there any visitors that committee members would like to recognize tonight? Not seeing any, we'll move on to item D, Adopt a Pond by Jennifer Alleman. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Committee Chair Green, President Harrell, board members, Superintendent Javia, and guests. During previous curriculum and instruction spotlights, we explored STEM programs and partnerships. Tonight, it is my honor to feature the St. Tammany Parish School System's community partnership with the St. Tammany Parish government and LSU Ag Sea Grant. This dynamic partnership affords our junior high and high school students an opportunity to engage in real-life STEM projects in their communities. This relationship was brought to life 4 years ago and affectionately named the Adopt a Pond Project. The Adopt a Pond Project exposes students to the local wetland habitat development, providing hands-on STEM lessons and valuable information. The Adopt a Pond Project begins each fall with St. Tammany teachers learning about Louisiana's unique ecosystem, the effects of pollution in our waterways, and water quality monitoring. Teachers incorporate this knowledge by enriching their ecology lessons and student understanding of the concepts and skills they themselves have gained through the trainings with the St. Tammany Parish government and LSU Ag Sea Grant. In the spring, students gain field experience traveling to a local pond in their community to conduct water quality testing. The students measure the amount of dissolved oxygen, pH, nitrate, and phosphate levels from water samples collected and record their data. With guidance and expertise from parish government representatives and LSU Sea Grant officials, students learn how to interpret the recorded data and the meaning, and of course, how the area's vegetation is important to the overall quality of these local waterways. Data gathered from each pond trip is maintained by the parish government and LSU Sea Grant for comparison to previous years and will be used in future field experience trips. The culminating experience for students is to plant saplings in the pond area they are testing. Our partnership with the parish government and LSU Ag Center is a wonderful opportunity for our students and teachers to learn about the community and to be good stewards of the unique ecosystem that surrounds them. To learn more about the Adopt a Pond Project, let's take a look at the work our teachers and students did this year.
We're all from Madisonville Junior High, and we're just kind of planting trees and testing the water. I've never actually planted anything before, other than an acorn.
This is the Covington High Green team.
We're doing like a quality test and planting trees in Marquette Pond. Adopt the Pond project is a partnership that we have between our schools and our students and teachers with the parish government. And we go through a process where students and both teachers are kind of trained on how to collect water samples, use scientific equipment, and then they'll take a field trip to that particular pond.
So we're learning about like water quality and how to exactly test it.
So that means we're testing nitrogen, phosphorus, dissolved oxygen, and water temperature.
We're testing salinity, water clarity.
And if there's like higher levels of nitrogen, phosphorus, and dissolved oxygen, that could mean that eutrophication is happening, and that's really problematic for the organisms.
We have about 450 trees that we're planting today.
To help with erosion.
We're just gonna like dig a hole in the ground, plant a tree.
And then you kind of tap it with your foot.
It's gonna filter out the water that comes through and exits, and it helps like flooding and stuff and keep the water clean.
This is a really cool opportunity that we have. I personally use it like on resumes and stuff.
This is my 4th year now in here, and it's like really exciting to help out.
Everybody's just been having fun. We sang some songs while we were planting trees.
As you can see, this is a valuable partnership for our teachers and students. I would like to take this time to recognize our community partners for fostering this relationship with St. Tammany Parish, teachers, and students. As I call your name, please stand to be recognized. Spaff Goodnow and Diette Smythe with the St. Tammany Parish government. Carol Franz with LSU Ag Sea Grant. I would also like to recognize some of our volunteer teachers and their students who have also joined us tonight. As I call your name, please stand to be recognized. Miss Jimmy Bennett from Covington High. Miss Leslie Calloway, also from Covington High. And Gabby Bennett. In addition, I would also like to recognize the following Madisonville Junior High teachers and students who are currently preparing to present a presentation for the Adopt a Pond program at next month's Parish Council meeting. As I call your name, please stand to be recognized. Miss Crystal Addison, Cadence Scott, Ava Jackson, Michael Allen, Beja Loops Morgan, Cooper Finney, and Alan Richardson. Would the parents of these students also stand to be recognized? Thank you so much. And the grandparents.
Thank you. Just a second. Is any comments or questions by committee members? Mrs. Baker?
Where are these ponds? Like, they look like they, in Madisonville, y'all were in the wetlands, like by the lake. Is that
And-
where y'all were?
In Madisonville, it is off of 22. It's almost in the back of a neighborhood. What is the pond called? Pine Creek Pond. You want to tell them?
Come to the, come to the mic. Thank you.
It's Pine Creek Pond, so it's kind of behind Lancaster, in like a little cul-de-sac.
So they're parish-owned ponds?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Detention ponds.
Oh.
And
Thank
what it actually has done for those two is.
Come on back.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you.
What the thought process was, I'm a landscape architect, so I kind of have ridden around watching us build these ponds everywhere, square ponds. And I kept asking the question, why are we spending money to mow in these ponds, use mechanical equipment in these ponds, and labor when we could create habitat and better water quality? And that's how it kind of came to fruition. So that's what we do. We got low water channels that always have water in them. And we test the water in the low water channels. We do have some ponds that do hold water, and we test them also. So that's how this kind of started. And we kind of talk about the engineering portions of it. the water calculations that are going into it, why we size them the way they do, why the pipes are the sizes that they are. So there's a lot of it that goes into the STEM with just the chemistry, the engineering process, but it's also low-hanging fruit for us as taxpayers to reduce our costs, increase habitat, and possibly some passive recreational opportunities.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you so much for including our kids in that. That's just a great wraparound service. So
Yeah,
thank you
it's
so
worked
much.
out really well. It's been
Awesome.
good.
I'm proud of them. Thank you.
Very much.
Ms. Smythe would like to say something.
It's Smythe. I just wanted to let you all know that the funding for this was very generously donated from 3 of our district councilmen and from some community partners that we have. Sunbelt Plastics in Slidell, Duplantis Design Group. Those 2 consulting firms or businesses provide for our buses. And then we also have Res this year that participated in a Boy Scout planning that we recently did and who we hope will be participating next year. Funding's important.
In which councilman?
District 1, that's Dean. District 5, I'm sorry, I don't know who the councilmen are. And District 14, huh?
I didn't know it was Mr. Loreno with District 5.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
And I think 11.
Okay, very good. That's Mrs. O'Brien, I'm pretty sure. All right. Mr. Derman.
Thank you, Mr. Nation. I was curious about the cost of the funding that we got from the grant, and then also the number of students that actually participated. I don't know if I heard that during the presentation or not.
This wasn't grant. This particular program is not grant funded. We're working to get some grant funding.
I heard a Sea grant. I was just
Louisiana Sea Grant is the academic arm of the National Atmospheric and Oceanic Administration, NOAA. They're situated in LSU, so they are an academic organization, and they have a co-appointment with LSU Ag Center.
okay. And I would hope to see this kind of expand out into our more coastal regions in St. Tammany, if that, because that looked like kind of upperland retention ponds in our subdivisions. But I would love to see that along the lakeshore somewhere where this also takes place. But
currently, we're only planting the dry detention ponds. Well, we have a few wet ones that we've planted the edges of, but we're focusing on the large regional stormwater detention ponds that the parish is building for stormwater control.
Right.
So they're 5 to 8 acres.
And before you go, Mr. Derman, you got anything else?
Yeah, just that number of the students that participated.
Covington High School, we have about 20 students that come when we go. We do it through the Environmental Science Club.
Okay.
And so we have about 20 students. We have 6 kids that have done it for.
Could you come to the mic? Yeah.
Yeah, the microphone doesn't.
Okay. So originally we had 8 schools. Covington High School was the only high school that started. And we have about 20 students. We have our seniors this year started at the beginning. And I think we had 6 seniors that came, but we had 20 that when we went out, what was it? A couple of weeks before, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So.
Thank you. I think this is a great idea. I think it helps educate not only our children and who are going to be, parents in the future, but to understand the impact that flooding and preserving our area means to us. And then with the growth, then we have to be smart that we can't grow, but we need to be good stewards of the land and protect what we have and do it in a smart, friendly, environmental way. And we have a lot to learn yet. So thank you.
All right, Mrs. Moore.
Thank you. I heard when you said volunteer, are our teachers volunteering?
Yes.
I want to give you a big round of applause for that. Because, I have worked with the National Science Foundation, and we kind of did the same thing, but out in the Gulf. And it's absolutely fantastic. So if we can do anything to get the kids all hooked up for you, let us know. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, not seeing anyone else in the queue. Thank you for that great report. All right, we now move on to the update from Superintendent Javia. Mr.
Hey.
Javia?
Good evening, everybody. Really some very positive news I'd like to share to start off with. I always start off with COVID numbers. So it's always, I really feel like since I've begun, this is a first. So this week, since we've been back in school, the 1st through the 4th, we had 0 positives among employees and 0 positives among students. So that is amazing. That is amazing. The parish, this, of course, I've always told you that the information I get from the Department of Health is always a week behind. So the parish is down to 2.7%. That is as of last week, which is definitely way down from where it was at one point. And I want to remind everybody that we did remove the mask from all buses. So that has been a wonderful, wonderful thing. So we're really excited about that. And just if we can just hopefully just keep moving in the right direction. I met with 4 schools today and they were absolutely thrilled with parents and volunteers that have been coming in. So I couldn't be any happier about that. You have the registration thing, Christy, if you don't mind. So Christy's going to be pulling it up. Just want to remind everybody that registration has begun. So our window is open, but there is always a lot of confusion in the public. So the only people that need to be registering right now currently, or if you're new to St. Tammany, you were never a St. Tammany student, you would be registering now. Other than that, if you roll up from your feeder school, or if you're currently enrolled in one of our schools currently, and you won't be rolling up next year as far as to a different school, you do not need to register. So those windows are open. And as you can see, the first window is open now. The second window will open up again once our registrars are back on our campuses, which happens on July 20th, because the last thing we want to do is leave applications in the queue and parents not be able to know the result of those. So our registrars will be back on campus July 20th. And of course, we'll do the in-person on the 28th and 29th for those that need additional support and help to get registered. So we're really excited. But please, you can join us at stpsb.org/pre-K, and we can get started and help you out any way we can there with registration. So we're excited to get that going. Every time I see registration, that means we're in the spring. So that's always a very good thing. Also, negotiations went on yesterday. It started yesterday. We're really happy with where we're going. Mr. Osborne and his team gave a wonderful presentation to us. So we're really excited about what the future holds and for our next meeting that will be coming up later in the month. And next, I wanted to talk about our Mr. Bouillon gave me a report today, which is the first time that this has happened in 2 years. So if you're not aware, on Sunday, the 13th, it will be 2 years ago Sunday that John Bell Edwards closed schools. 2 years ago on Sunday. So with that being in mind, with COVIDs and what's going on, our absentee rate among students has been pretty high when you look at over the last, few months with the positives, with the quarantines and everything that's going on. But we hit a 2-year low for the first time this week, and we've only had 4.75% of our students that were not in school on a daily basis. So that's just I've talked to this group, I've talked to this board of how important it is for our students to be in school and how important it is for our employees to be in school because we need both to be successful. So just tremendous good news tonight. Hope it continues, and I appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you, Mr. Jabby. Any questions or comments for the superintendent? All right. Not seeing any, we move on now to approval of the minutes for the committee as a whole meeting held on February 3, 2022. Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Kuzan, is there a second? Second by Mr. Loop. Any comments or questions by the public regarding the minutes? Any comments or questions by members of the committee? Not seeing any. The floor is open to vote.
Can get it pop up?
All right, and the minutes are approved unanimously. Moving on to our administrative reports, Mr. Kosei, monthly maintenance and custodial report.
Thank you, Chairman Nation, Superintendent Javia, Board. Before you, you have your monthly maintenance and custodial report, and Mr. Wade Gottschalk, our Supervisor of Maintenance, is here to answer any questions relative to that report.
Any questions by committee members for Mr. Gottschalk? All right, not seeing any.
Your second report tonight, item B, is your monthly risk management report, and our risk manager, Mr. Kurt Gaspard, is here regarding that report if you have any questions.
Any questions by committee members for Mr. Gaspard? All right, not seeing any. We'll move on to our transportation report.
And item C is our monthly transportation report, and our Supervisor of Transportation, Mr. George Bodie, is here if you have any questions regarding that report.
Any questions by committee members for Mr. Bodie? All right, not seeing any. Thank you, Mr. Kosei.
Thank you.
Moving on now to our construction reports, Ms. Tipton.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Nation. Our first item is for consideration of bids for Mandeville High School paving repairs, St. Tammany Parish School Board Project P0306. We took those bids on Tuesday this week, and we're recommending acceptance of the low base bid, alternate number 1 and alternate number 2, submitted by Lowe Brothers LLC in the amount of $464,015.
All right. Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Green, is there a second? I'll offer that. Okay. Mr. Derman, any questions by members of the public? Any questions by members of the committee? All right, not seeing any. Oh, sorry. Mr. Green.
Could you kind of walk us through the project, what we're doing?
Yes, sir. The base bid will be, this is working all the driveways right there immediately as you come into the school. So the north driveway, if you're familiar with that, where the buses line up, goes out to what is considered Skipper Drive on out by the practice field. We're going to be doing that when you get to the parking lot area back towards the portables. So that whole length of the north driveway of Skipper Drive. And then the alternate number 1 is
The one that runs adjacent to Woodridge?
yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the alternate number 1 area is the L-shaped drive, which goes in front of the administration and then turns and goes in front of the auditorium.
Okay.
And then the alternate number 2 is the portion of driveway that goes from Skipper Drive in front of the home side of the stadium out to Robert Desang Drive by the tennis courts.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Derman.
This may not actually be to that particular motion or the construction, but are we finished with the classroom additions there?
Yes, sir. We finished the second phase of that, or third, I guess at that point where we took out the second group of modulars and put a new parking lot in on the north side of the school. So we have
this is kind of
completed
like
everything.
reconnecting all of the different changes that took place during that course of the construction on those and removing the modulars or whatever else we had. So
It is
it's kind of
somewhat
like
related.
tying it all back together again.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Derman. Anyone else? All right, the floor is open to vote. And the motion is adopted unanimously. All right, moving on to your construction report.
Yes, sir. Waterproofing at the exterior of the new kindergarten building is underway at Lee Road Junior High. Interior stud walls have been installed throughout the new kindergarten building, and the roof has been dried in at the new dishwash room addition. At Fifth Ward Junior High School addition, the welding booths have been delivered, and they're working on the epoxy flooring installation, and the canopy back to the school has been installed. All of the first floor slab for Little Oak Middle School new addition has been poured, and the structural steel is being erected, and they poured half of the new parking lot recently. At Bayou Woods Elementary, the structural steel installation is nearly complete. Acoustical decking is being installed. The block work is nearing completion, Electrical is being roughed in, and part of the roofing is scheduled to start next week. At North Shore High School, the windows and exterior door frames are being installed, and the ductwork has been insulated. At Florida Avenue Elementary, the walls in the kitchen area are framed and being inspected, and they'll be starting sheetrock shortly. At Abita Middle School, the building slab has been poured and structural steel is scheduled for delivery. At Folsom Elementary School, sidewalks were poured and the footing for the new ramp at the gym is being formed. In the classrooms, the drywall is being finished, and the AC units have been set for the breezeway restrooms. The first half of the slab for Covington High School additions project was poured at the end of last week. And at Covington Elementary, they're completing the interior finishes on the new building. They're working on exterior grading, and they're scheduling final inspections, and their furniture is ready to be delivered. At Magnolia Trace, the contractor is forming and setting steel for the grade beams. Plumbing is being roughed in, and they expect to pour the foundation beam sometime next week, weather permitting. At Lancaster Elementary Addition, the classrooms are complete, and we are still waiting for the glazed tile to be delivered and installed so the hallways can be completed. And the modular configuration that the contractor is utilizing for the temporary classroom wing for Cypress Cove Elementary Additions has been submitted both to the fire marshal and the parish. And the contractor is expected to mobilize fairly soon relative to those modulars being delivered. And then the contractors for Abney Elementary and for Fontainebleau High School mobilized last week during the Mardi Gras holiday week. To answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Tipton. Any questions by committee members for Ms. Tipton?
I'm sorry, I didn't finish. I had a second page, which is, got ahead of myself. I do want to bring you up to date on all the turf fields. Thank you. The agreements have been finalized and signed with the bonding company and the completion contractors. The bonding company has sent a check for the difference in cost between the school board's balance of funds and the bid of the completion contractor for the tender scope of work. Covington High and North Shore High Schools, at both of those locations, the bonding company's contractor, Paragon Sports, mobilized on site this week, and they've already started doing investigative work at Covington High School, and they've also reviewed North Shore High site. For Slidell High, Fontainebleau High, and the turf system for 5 fields, the contractor that has been awarded that work through the bonding company is Precision Construction and Contracting, and they're scheduled to mobilize here the week of March 21st. They've indicated they plan to start work at Slidell High that week and also then look at Fontainebleau High the following week. We've had a Zoom meeting with them, and we're scheduling another prior to their arrival here. The Pearl River High School, that contractor has mobilized there, and they've moved the visitor bleachers and they cut the field to grade. We found that the field area is holding water in the upper layers of the soils, and so we are working with the geotechnical engineer and the civil engineer to address that issue and to get an estimate of cost for some additional work. And then Mandeville High and Salmon High, those 2 fields are scheduled to start following track season, which is about May 9th, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Now I am complete.
You are
Thank
done.
you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Tipton. Any questions by committee members? Mr. Durman.
Thank you, Mr. Nation. Ms. Tipton, talking about the fields, North Shore and Covington High were in some status of being somewhere in different stages, North Shore being the most, and as we went down the pecking order of the schools. So what is the timeline or expectation for some of these schools, fields to actually come online?
So the agreements that were signed, and all of these still are subject to, as you know, changes by change order due to weather or otherwise that are allowed by the contract. But as it was bid, North Shore and Covington High have, I think, North Shore maybe like 60 days and Covington High maybe 75. That was bid with the bonding company for completion. And then the others are 120 days from when they start.
So by the end of the school year, they should be close to completion
For
with
North
those
Shore
two.
and Covington High.
Right.
We would think so unless something
And then the
happens
other
that's
ones, we got
unexpected.
almost a full 4 or 5 months, which would bring us into the beginning of the football season on
Getting
the other
close to
ones.
it. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, not seeing anyone else in the queue. We'll move on now. Thank you, Ms. Tipton.
Thank you.
Move on now to our internal auditor report. Mr. Incaprera. Any questions for Mr. Incaprera about the reports he provided us through board docs? Okay, not seeing any. We'll move on now to our finance department reports. Mrs. Prevost, item A.
Thank you, Mr. Darman. This item is to consider and take action with respect to adopting a resolution to authorize the sale of 16 section land timber. Basically, what this resolution is providing is for us to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with Tangipahoa School Board and Washington Parish School Board, so that we can sell timber that is located on 16 section land, that land being located in Tangipahoa, Washington, and St. Tammany parishes. The resolution will give Tangipahoa the authority to act on our behalf in advertising for bids for sale of the timber, determine the highest bidder, and determine the terms and condition for the sale of the timber. Once that is complete, the proceeds, after deducting actual costs, will be distributed to each of the 3 school boards in proportion to the percentage of township lying in each parish. The total acreage is 23,000 roughly. Approximately 765 acres are in Washington Parish and 1,230 are in St. Tammany, the remainder being in Tangipahoa. This property is located at Township 4, South Range 9 East. That's a designation related to the 16 section lands. And just to give you, for those who don't know what this is, 16 section lands constitute part of a surveyed rectangular sections that were done by the Second Continental Congress in 1784 and 1785. Congress reserved and dedicated those 16 sections in each township for the support of public schools. So local school boards are only given custodial authority over the lands and not actual ownership. So that's what those properties, the timber upon our portion will be sold and we will get the proceeds. Any questions?
All right, so there is a resolution that we need to adopt for
Yes, sir.
this. So before we move any further, is there a motion, someone to sponsor the resolution? Mr. Green? All right, and the second by Mrs. Lamey. All right, so the resolution to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement, intergovernmental agreement, is now laid upon the table. So, Mr. Derman. Oh, okay, Mrs. Baker.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. So what, would we always get revenue, like we harvest every 20 years or whatever? I mean, is this?
It's possible, yes.
Okay, so they clean the ground for replanting? I mean, it's
I'm
like
assuming, yeah, most of the land is under Tangipahoa, so that's why we're agreeing to let them handle it. I'm assuming that's what'll occur, and they'll possibly replant.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Nation. Do we have any anticipation for what kind of proceeds we'll get from this, or did I
They
miss
didn't
it?
give me
or-
any idea, so,
Okay,
I mean, what did I say, 1,230 acres?
so we'll know when it hits the coffers.
Yeah, I don't know what timber prices are, so I would think it's,
Pretty good right now.
yeah, we'll let you know when we get it.
Okay.
It'll be interesting. I think it's the first one I've seen since I've been here, so in 15 years. So.
For me too.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Green. All right. Now, any comments or questions from members of the public regarding this resolution? All right. Not seeing any further comments or questions by members of the committee, the floor is now open to vote. And the motion is adopted unanimously. All right, Mrs. Prevost, your monthly purchasing report.
Yes, I provided you with the January monthly financial report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions on that report.
and purchasing.
Oh, I'm sorry. They got us out of order. Yeah, Ms. Carrasco is here on that report.
All right, any questions for Mrs. Carrasco? Okay. Now your financial reports.
Sorry. Yes, the January financial report was provided to you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mrs. Prevost regarding the January financials? All right, not seeing any. Thank you, Mrs. Prevost. We move on now to public comments. First up is Mr. Brant Osborne.
Good evening. Brent Osborne, St. Tammany Federation President. As Superintendent Jabbia mentioned, we began the official reopener. I was very pleased with that process. It was very professionally conducted. You know, I am trained to do it, but it's the first official time, so I was appreciative of his staff. A lot of different skill sets involved. I need to thank Stephanie Underwood, my counterpart, the Executive Vice President. She's the numbers person, and she does a great job with the PowerPoint. She made everything look really pretty. So I know they're taking it seriously. We sat in a room as they deliberated for over 2 hours. So it was very positive. They gave us some pertinent questions and some advice to tweak some things. So I think this is really what I prefer, which is a collaborative experience. And I believe Superintendent Jabbia also prefers that mode. As you're probably aware, gas prices have skyrocketed. And again, I'm appreciative of what the board did previously to help with operations. We're in this place where you guys did a good thing, and then these gas prices are just biting us. So we're looking for solutions. To be clear, the reopener is for next year, but we have asked the administration for the fuel-related stuff to get something done this year so that we could just get to the end and then have things fixed for next year. So I wanted to be clear, most of this takes effect next year, but we did want to try to help our owner operators and also our itinerant teachers and other staff members as far as mileage for their vehicles. So the next part of the process, as Superintendent Jabbia mentioned, is March 23rd, we'll come back. They'll give the counter proposal. So it's that idea of a back and a forth. Superintendent Jabbia and I, we both want to deliver the world, but you have to be, fiscally responsible. So that's the tension. And so I think we're going to arrive at that sweet spot, and I think employees are going to be pleased. Thank you all.
Next is Mr. Jeffrey Richards.
Evening, board members, Superintendent Jabbia, and fellow citizens. My name is Jeff Richards. I'm a tax-paying citizen, business owner, and father of 3, the youngest of which is 13 years old. Of everything that I've done or will do, being a father is my most important job. I will protect my kids and do everything that I can do to make sure they are in a position to be happy, productive, successful citizens. A critical part of that is their education. When my older children started school in St. Tammany Parish, our schools were ranked in the absolute tops in the state. Now I can't find a ranking anywhere that has us ranked higher than 15th, and in most rankings lower than that. 15th in a state that U.S. News and World Report ranked 48th in the country in education. I'm no politician. I carry no weight other than my voice, my vote, and the taxes that I pay. But I'm not alone in wanting answers. How is it that one of the wealthiest parishes in the state can do no better than 15th? I have a few possible answers. How about the adversarial relationship the district has had with its frontline workers, the teachers? Or that we've sunk to 12th out of 16th in the southern region for teacher pay? Or that there's been almost no effort on the part of the district to develop and maintain a substitute pool, and our teachers are forced to give up their planning periods to cover absent teachers constantly? All of this has led to a worsening morale, more early teacher retirements, and a drain of experience and skill sets that hurt our kids in their educational process. Furthering that sinking morale is the collusive effort between Pete Jabbia and this board to appoint Frank Jabbia, Pete's son, to the very lucrative position of superintendent.
Point of order. We are going to have these meetings run under state law with decorum. You made an accusatory comment. I'm really respectfully asking you to keep your comments curtailed against individuals, please.
Nothing but the truth, sir. If I operated my business as this school district has, I would fully expect to go out of business. If I worked in private corporate structure, I would expect to be fired. There is no coincidence that as our teachers' compensation rate has fallen when compared to the Southern regional average, our academic performance has fallen with it. You cannot expect teachers to continue to operate professionally and efficiently when their workload continues to increase and their real effective pay decreases. There needs to be language that addresses cost of living increases on an annualized basis and real percentage increases in compensation levels to raise St. Tammany teachers to the upper levels of the Southern region. This has to happen in order to regain competitive footing. Since the district is so fond of creating new administrative positions, how about an employee retention position, someone that actually listens to teachers, reacts to their concerns, and endeavors to keep them? Elections are coming up.
The gentleman's time has expired. Next up is Mrs. Stephanie Lettier.
Good evening, Stephanie Lettier, 7-year owner-operator. First, I want to thank you for working with Mr. Osborne, our union president, regarding the short-term assistance the drivers needed. Among the 2 stipends that I recently received, almost $2,500, I had big plans for my bus. I did buy 2 new front tires, which was huge for me, and I had a list of 7 more items, but due to the current fuel crisis, these items had to be delayed. I'm speaking today to bring awareness to the board how our fuel is paid out and to ask for revisions. Drivers pay their own fuel and get reimbursed. It takes 30 to 45 days for this reimbursement. Here's our current situation. On average, fuel may fluctuate 5-10 cents a month, which is what our usual average is, if that. Over a month, we can manage this. I drive 1,320 miles every 11 days, which is an approximate pay period time. Divide that by 11 miles, which is my maximum average per gallon, brings me to 189 gallons every pay period. A month ago, the fuel average was $3.54 per gallon. Current average is $4.69 per gallon for diesel. At these figures, this is approximately $420 more a month, and it's continuing to climb. 114 is the increase average over the past month for a gallon of fuel. We can manage the average monthly increases of 5, 10, 15 cents, whatever it may be, but $1.14 more per gallon is catastrophic. Current example, or current situation, it's my understanding that March 15 and 31st pay for fuel is paid based on February 15 AAA fuel rates from City of New Orleans, which is a true reimbursement. But when the reimbursement rate lags behind 30 and 45 days, and we have a $1.14 jump during that 30 to 45 day span, it puts a huge strain on us that most drivers cannot overcome. I'm asking today for fuel reform to be reviewed. We need the AAA fuel rate to be updated every payday and not every 30 to 45 days and later. We need this immediately, and it cannot wait for a new contract to take place in August. I know y'all have been working with Brant, working on revisions for next August. We're very thankful for that. I was super thankful for the money that I did receive. I was able to start getting some things done, but I could not do the things that I had intended to do because at this point, I'm holding on to the money. Because it's hold on to the money, it's pay fuel, or it's pay my mortgage. My mortgage will come first. And if that leaves me with a very small pool of money left over, this is where it starts to get tight, very tight. So some of that money I still have and I'm holding on to it. But if I didn't have that money, that was given to us, by the way, as aid for our operations, completely separate for fuel. Most of us would be in a really bad spot.
Thank you. The gentlelady's
Thank you for your time.
Has expired. Mrs. Lee Barrios.
Lee Barrios, retired teacher. On February 11th, I'm going to go ahead and discuss the substitute situation before the agenda item next meeting. On February 11th, I filed a public records request asking for the numbers of substitutes that had applied since June 1st of last summer, which was only about 7 months from the time that I asked for the report. I was surprised to learn that there were 582 applications for substitutes. I asked for the numbers that had been processed and approved. 425, still a large number. I then asked how many approved substitutes have fulfilled at least one assignment subbing. The response from the custodian was, a document does not exist responsive to your request. I responded, not asking for a document, asking for data, a number. Response from the custodian, we don't track that way. The way we track won't answer the question. It seems like education is all about data, but if central office and human resources doesn't have this kind of data easily accessible, no wonder there's little motivation or a viable plan to improve the substitute situation. Recently, someone made the statement in a personal conversation with a teacher that she had applied 6 months ago for a substitute and hadn't been called or processed as of that date. Unfortunately, that person was penalized for that innocent statement. It's a sad day when retribution is used to silence a voice in this school system, but it does happen all too often. I'll be talking to each of you privately about that because it's a private situation. In addition to offering a much larger increase in substitute pay, the process needs to be streamlined. It's just not good enough anymore to do the same thing that has been done for years. Thank you.
Ms. Carrie Witchers.
I would just like to read, according to the Robert Rules of Order, draws attention to a breach of rules and proper procedure, a breaching of established practices. A member may need to bring up an additional point or additional information in order to, so that the other members can make fully informed votes. Point of inquiry. Oh, wait, I lost it. I'm sorry, it went away. Barbara, it went away. I'm sorry. I'll try next time. Next meeting.
Ms. Barbara Sharp.
Barbara Sharp, bus driver. I actually had a little fun writing this one. First, I attended public schools here before computers. We were taught math without calculators. Computers were a futuristic idea. Now, I want to remind you and the public that at the beginning of the school year, this year, administration got the board to approve a $2 million pay increase and restructuring of the personnel in the main office, which included a 5% pay increase. Basically, I have repeated in this forum that as support person at St. Tammany, I have received 34 cents per hour over the last 11 years. Again, teachers have not fared much better. The actual figures are, over 11 years, I have worked 1,239 hours per year, and that equals 13,629 hours, with a total of 4,300 of pay increases over the same period. That's the 4,300 equals an average of $391 per year, or if you divide the 391 by 1,239 hours, you still get approximately 32 cents an hour. Oh, I want to correct my mistake. I have been saying 34 cents, when it is really 32 cents per hour. I received an email from the accounting department, a good example of the smoke and mirrors that appear to be common. Her request was that I stop giving out misinformation and correct this going forward. She even provided me with a spreadsheet that shows what support employees have received over the last 10 years. Now remember, mine was based on 11 years. Yes, that is pennies. I quote from the email, total increase for 10 years, rounded, is $3.35 per hour, not 37 cents. Now, if you let the smoke clear and you want to really make it reality look better, you can multiply the 32 cents per hour over 10 years and come close to what she says we have been given. But the fact is, there has only been an average of 34 cents per hour given to support staff over the last 10 years. Yes, that's pennies. Difference between 10 and 11 years, because that's the first year in that group of 11 years was only a $150 increase. Others had no increase at all. There's nothing you can say or put on a spreadsheet that will change how the
gentlelady's
support
time has
personnel
expired.
and the
The
teachers
gentlelady's
have
time
been
has
treated.
expired. The public comments are now concluded, and with no further business to come before the committee, I declare this meeting adjourned.